Welcome to episode 22 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Space Seed. In this week's episode, an echo of Earth's 20th century threatens to wreak havoc upon the Enterprise, as the SS Botany Bay and its long-forgotten crew awake in an unfamiliar future and set about the task of relieving Kirk and his team of their ship. With genetics on their side, the apparent supermen seem unassailable, but can the tables be turned before it's too late?
You're in bed, holding a knife at your doctor's throat. Answer my question. Be most effective if you would cut the carotid artery just under the left ear.
Hi Ian, where would you like me to cut?
Right through the middle of the cake.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. That's going to sound weird to folk who listen to this in August.
Well, I should have listened in July.
Yeah, when we did it.
Yeah. Why are you waiting?
We're not actually releasing it until August though.
That's the point. Ah well.
Never mind. They've missed it. It's too late to send presents. Just keep them.
Until next year.
Yeah.
Had a good day?
Not bad. It's a bit warm for
when
my
you get to your age, Ian.
At my age, every day's a good day, as long as you don't die at the end of it.
Really? Every day's a wet day?
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not quite as old as you are. And never will be.
You just look it. Did you enjoy
Space Seed?
Yeah.
Yes. Did you?
Perhaps you should be asking me that.
Well, yes. This was the one that I'd told you to watch ages ago. In
preparation for the non-Shatner gig.
You've still not seen the follow-up movie then?
I've not.
Do you think having watched this episode you're more or less interested in watching the movie?
More.
Good.
Yeah, I think I can see how it could set it up, although the time frame isn't probably enough to fully satisfy.
Oh, it's almost 20 years between them.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Well, the movie was in the 80s and this was done in the mid-60s.
Yeah, but I don't know when the movie was set.
I think they just go chronologically with the age of the actors.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps you felt this adversary was more worthy than the Gorn?
Yes, without a doubt. And it must be, thinking back, it must be because of the movie, obviously The Wrath of Khan, I've heard of that. I'd assumed that Khan played a bigger role. I thought he was a recurring character throughout the original series, but from what I can gather, he's not. It's just this and the movie. Pretty
much. You don't get that much in the way of recurring characters in this show.
Yeah, they all seem to die off, don't they? Or never be spoken about again.
Occasional crew members will show up.
Romulans. Come on, Romulans, they must come back.
The species does, but not the individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think it was similar to anything we've seen before?
I thought there were some characterizations that were similar, and one in particular that I wasn't entirely comfortable with. I think there are a few issues, and this is another episode where I'm not best pleased with Kirk. Not necessarily in terms of the outcome, but just his attitude.
Okay, fair enough. I thought there was, the closest thing I could think of was in The Naked Time when Riley took control of the ship, but it wasn't really that similar.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of where No Man's Gone before and the infatuation with one of the the female crew members.
Shall we get into it then?
Why not? Let's crack on. We begin on the bridge.
Fairly standard opening.
They are approaching a space vessel with unknown origins in a sector that, according to Spock, has had no flights recorded for many years.
That's true, but Kirk does take great delight when Spock's pronouncement turns out to be untrue.
Yeah, although he does get a bit snappy with Uhura when she reads out a Morse code signal that she's just picked up, CQ, CQ. His attitude towards the female crewman in this episode, it leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's just trying to say, yeah, I know Morse code, you don't need to tell me, or
but still,
if it's something else. Yeah, it's a bit rude.
Yeah.
We get a report from McCoy.
What's that?
There are life signs on the ship, but unlikely to be human because the heart rate is so slow.
Yeah, that's correct. I think we see the ship appear on the screen before McCoy's report, and Spock IDs it as a 100-year-old DI-100 class Earth vessel from the 1990s.
Yeah, well, way more than 100 years old, more than 200 years old at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think Kirk, he makes an assumption that it's just been an old vessel with a signal that's been left on.
Yeah, maybe it's just kept going, the engines have kept firing, it's drifted this far.
They went on holiday and left their TV on.
It's careless.
In any case, Kirk orders a full alert on the Enterprise as we get a nice shot of it pulling up beside this new craft.
I thought it was very picturesque.
It was good, yeah.
There's some good music in this episode as well.
You liked it?
Yeah, it was used nicely.
Something we haven't really discussed too much. Perhaps in another episode we can do a bit of a deeper dive into the score.
Sure.
We have the credits and then a captain's log, 3141.9. What do we find out here?
So it's been an hour since they came across this vessel and it's not done anything.
No, including tried to respond or communicate in any way.
No, they've tried poking it, tickling it. Nothing has made any difference.
Nope. I like your little tickling sign there.
Yeah, international gesture.
No, not really.
Under the armpits.
Okay. We should say, but there's been no threat from it either.
No, there's nothing at all.
Yeah. We're still on the bridge. McCoy enters and notes that he is picking up, or he still is picking up faint heart action from about 70 bodies, which could be alien, as there is no sign of breathing.
That's it.
Spock also has some information that quickly leads to an exchange about the type of people responsible for eugenics and war.
Hull surface is pitted with meteor scars. However, scanners make out a name. SS Botany Bay.
Then you can check the registry.
No such vessel listed. Records of that period are fragmentary, however. The mid-1990s was the era of your last so-called World War.
The eugenics wars.
Of course. Your attempt to improve the race through selective breeding.
Oh, now, wait a minute. Not our attempt, Mr. Spock. A group of ambitious scientists. I'm sure you know the type. Devoted to logic. Completely unemotional.
Doctor, I would be pleased.
All right, gentlemen, as you were. Rig for tractor beam, helm, lock onto that vessel.
Rigging for tractor beam, sir.
Bridge is yours, Mr. Spock. Care to join the landing party, Doctor?
Well, if you're actually giving me a choice,
I'm not. Oh, I'll need somebody familiar with the late 20th century Earth. Here's a chance for that historian to do something for a change. What's her name? McGivers?
Lieutenant MacGyver.
MacGyver's got to be Richard Dean Anderson.
That's it.
Was he not part of this?
No.
What was that? Stargate or something?
One of them.
Andromeda?
I don't follow these things.
Lex. What was Lex?
Battlestar.
There was some show on that had quite a hot female lead. I remember back in the 90s. I used to sometimes.
Was it La Femme Nikita?
No, it wasn't.
It was Xena Warrior Princess?
No, it was on a spaceship somewhere.
Okay.
I think it might have been Lex. Rings a bell. Never really watched it much. Had it on in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, as we heard in the clip there, I'm not really happy with Kirk in this episode. His disrespect for a colleague is quite evident there. Can't even remember her name, and he's not apologetic. I don't think he has to remember every single person's name on. There's 400 odd, so it's understandable he might not know him, but it's almost as if he couldn't care less. MacGyver's, whatever. She's some stupid woman who's into history. It's not as if they're never in positions or environments where a knowledge of the past might be useful. It happens all the time. I think back to the Squire of Gothos.
Yep.
So, disregard and disrespect for her.
I mean, it is a bit harder to imagine a spacecraft these days taking off and saying, oh, we've got to have Tony Robinson and Mary Beard on board. Just in case.
Sure. I'm not so sure. I think having a historic, because that's a cliche, isn't it? If you know your past, you'll get a better understanding of what's to come. Things are circular,
so
cyclical. So, no, I think someone with that sort of level of knowledge would be useful and should not be disparaged in such a manner. It's not the only time in this episode he disrespects her. We'll come back to that.
We will. He certainly didn't hook up with her at the Christmas party.
She wasn't. That's why I think he was jealous.
That's probably the problem. She's turned him down.
Yes. We head straight over to MacGyver's. Is it MacGyver's, isn't it?
It's MacGyver.
I'm doing a Kirk. Can't remember.
You slack him off and then to do the same thing.
I'm not her boss, however. We head over to MacGyver's office / quarters, where she's working on a watercolour of what looks like a Roman soldier.
Yep.
And she hears a communication.
She does.
What does it ask her?
She
to
is required to attend at the transporter room.
Along with Scotty. She does conform, but doesn't seem too happy about it.
No. It's a bit of a strange one. You think she'd be excited to get into some action. What's going on? What's happening? Yeah.
I'd imagine it's a bit like a sort of a sniper squad or a bomb disposal unit where you sit around most of the time doing nothing.
Oh, bomb! Well, yeah. Well, maybe that's why Kirk's got the bad attitude to her. Maybe she just walks around with a face like Fizz all the time.
I don't know. Yeah, perhaps.
Let's get back to her paintings.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem to me to be history. She's just doing paintings.
Not sure if that's the best use of her time, but still, that's. I'm sure she doesn't have sort of an autonomous rule. She'll be told what to do. She's there to work, so it's up to Kirk to say what you should and shouldn't be doing. He must know what's going on.
Yeah, you would think so. Or at least somebody should.
Could be, is it a case that perhaps the Starfleet command have said, you need this person on board? Kirk didn't want her. No chance, we don't need. And they've foisted the position.
Yeah, insisted you're a voyage of discovery and exploration, you must have a historian.
Although with 400 people, you can afford a few luxuries. It's not as if it's a small crew of 6 people and it's not like a space mission where you've only got like 3 or 4 people.
But it's maybe breeds a bit of resentment if everybody else is contributing to the well-being of the ship and one person just sits around painting pictures.
Are they all though? Are they?
Well,
some of them just bring tea and coffee and things like that.
Well, yeah, but they record all the logs and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're down in the transporter room. Scotty notes that the vessel seems to be preparing to welcome visitors.
That's a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you'd be a bit concerned.
How does it know they're about to beam over?
Can sense it. They've got powers. And I think Kirk notes McCoy's reluctance to leave the Enterprise.
Yeah, he says he didn't sign up to have his atoms splattered across space.
And Kirk, again, is a bit of an arse here. He wants to know where MacGyver's is. Even though I think it's only moments since the command, the order went out.
Well, she was the last to show up when they were ready to go.
Yeah, but she might have been further away.
It's possible.
And also, we don't know what she's doing. If she's in the middle of, painting.
A history emergency.
No, she could be covered in paints all over her hands. You don't get down in a mission with, ink all over yourself or paint or whatever. You clean up. Give her 10 minutes to prepare herself. Anyway, she does appear. And he again makes it clear he is not even sure what her name is. And he reacts like he's now just realising she's a woman. If you look at this scene, he gives her a sort of this sideways glance, or he looks her up and down. It didn't sit right with me.
He's not impressed with her.
No. In any case, we cut down to DI 100.
What's happening there?
There's an attractive female lying in suspended animation in a pod, amongst many others, as Kirk, McCoy, MacGyver and Scotty materialise.
Yes, they're on the Botany Bay.
Where Scotty immediately identifies the ship as coming from the 20th century.
And from Earth, more to the point. He's very excited about it.
And so is MacGyver's.
Well, of course. She confirms to Kirk that it's a sleeper ship, which was required at that time because prior to 2018, space travel could take years.
But now, obviously, after 2018, it takes, days.
It's fine, yeah.
Yep.
I'm glad they predicted that one correctly.
Mm-hmm. Kirk wonders if it is possible that they are still alive. McCoy says theoretically yes, but he seems sceptical. Why? He's aware of their heartbeats. I mean, they're obviously still alive.
At a very low level, so is
still
it
life.
Enough to sustain brain activity?
Well,
that's the question.
Well, that's different, isn't it? Brain activity is... You're still alive.
Well, you could be brain dead.
Could be.
Yeah.
The lights come up, and something has been triggered as, amongst a handsome group of people, as described by MacGyver's, we see the chest rise and fall of a man with long, dark hair. He reminded me, his hair of a... Well, it's a ridiculous haircut. It reminds me of Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Fair enough. It's all the style back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another correct prediction from the writers of Star Trek.
McCoy confirms that this chap's heartbeat is rising and there are no signs of respiration. And after apparently being distracted by the handsomeness, Off the man, MacGyver tells Kirk that the leader was usually programmed to awaken first.
Yeah, well, he wasn't programmed, but his compartment would be set up to activate early so he could assess the circumstances.
Seems sensible.
Hopefully they've got a backup plan if his has malfunctioned.
I'm sure I'll just go down the list. Who's next?
Yeah.
What pod? Yeah.
She says he looks like a Sikh from northern India, a fantastic warrior race.
Fair enough. She knows what she's talking about.
Sikhs well known for their wars.
I don't know.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I can't think of any. There must be some.
Maybe localised.
Yeah.
And she is fascinated by the possibility of him coming alive before her.
We get a bit of casual racism from Scotty.
Do we?
His only observation of the people is that they're mixed types. Western, he's going down the list. Western, Mid-European, Latin, Oriental.
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah. You'd think he'd have learned by 23rd century.
Clearly not.
No.
It's almost like he's got a 60s attitude.
It does seem that way. Anyhow, yes, as you say, Marla's amazed at this 20th century man coming to life. It'd be like us defrosting a caveman from a block of ice and he was still alive.
Or a California Man, or I think in the States it's called Encino Man, with Brandon Fraser and I think it's Pauly Shore.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually it wouldn't be like a caveman, it'd be like someone from the mid-18th century.
Okay.
For us in terms of time. Anyhow, yes, McCoy starts to worry because the readings are fluctuating and...
Well, when you say they start to drop dramatically. Yes. They're dying in front of them.
Kirk takes remedial action and there's a wee bit of a blooper here.
Is there?
Did you notice?
No.
So as Kirk uses the torch to smash the glass panel, his phaser falls off his belt.
Right.
And you see McCoy kind of glancing at it and back a few times, wondering if they're going to continue the take.
Well, you say it's a blooper, but if you carry on, you might do that in real life.
I think it was... Yeah, I think it'd be harsh to call it a blooper. It's just an unintended event.
Sure. So they get this chap out of the pod and he struggles to breathe and speak, but does manage a whispered question.
Yes, he says, how long? Kirk says
7 inches. Anyway, and Kirk tells him 2 centuries before communicating with the Enterprise and advising them to expect a guess.
Yes, McCoy's going to take his new...
Did we both independently write that or think of that childish joke there?
I didn't write it.
But yeah. I think as soon as you hear it said, that's the obvious response.
It's the only answer you can have.
Yeah.
It's the 17-year-old in all of us.
Mm-hmm. I wish I'd sitting.
Oh, come on. MacGyver's is remaining transfixed even as the scene comes to an end.
She is,
She's obviously infatuated with this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, she very much reminds me of Denholm, Sally Kellerman.
Yeah.
From the earlier episode. We have a supplemental log here.
Yeah, well, a bit of an update. 10 hours now they've been alongside the Botany Bay, so 9 hours since the last captain's log. There's still a boarding party, including Scotty, I think, over on the ship, but Kirk's come back to the Enterprise and they're going to try and see if they can save this first man before they try to revive anybody else.
On the bridge, he communicates down to Scotty, who tells him that there are no logbooks and that 12 people have perished already, leaving around 72 alive, and notes that 30 of them are women. He then speaks to Spock and is intrigued with the possibility of finding out more about the 1990s, a period that Spock describes how...
Yeah, Spock refers to the strangeness and the violence of that period.
I was thinking it'd be funny if it was all like... It's, the 1990s, but it's terrible clothes, grunge, it's a Backstreet Boys.
Shell suits.
Yeah. Avril Lavigne, is that she 1990s?
More into the 2000s, I think.
Was it? Anyway, that whole sort of...
Britpop.
In the UK, yeah. Yeah, it's not a good time, to be honest. I don't really... Looking back, I don't like the 90s.
The late 90s were a lot better than the early 90s, weren't they? John Major for 5 years. And,
yeah, if you're looking at politics.
But then nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like, literally, there was 5 years of nothing between 92 and about 96.
You think?
Oh, what do you remember from...
Well, that's only 4 years for a start.
No, I'm including the 2 years either end.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I don't know. I haven't checked out, but I'm sure there's something went on.
No, nothing. You check. The history books are empty.
Euro 96?
That was at the end of that. That's when we came out of it.
USA 94?
Yeah, Scotland didn't qualify. Nobody watched it. In fact, I don't think any of only Ireland from...
Are you suggesting that no one ever watches the World Cup.
Well, England didn't qualify either. It was
No, they're not doing that, yeah.
It wasn't as big an event in this country, I don't think, because of that.
Away you go to talk rubbish. Absolutely massive.
I watched it in France. I was on holiday.
I remember Ireland beat Italy in the giant stadium.
I remember more.
Ray Houghton scored a classic.
Stoichkov for Bulgaria and Hadji for Romania being the guys that were the most impressive for me.
Okay, yeah, good players, yeah.
And you had the whole baby rocking celebration craze that's still going on today.
Terrible. That was Brazilian. Bebeto, yeah. Terrible.
Should never have started that.
No. I like old school goal celebrations.
One hand in the air, run away.
Yeah, Dennis Law and Alan Shearer.
Yep.
That's fine, that's all you need. Yeah.
Yeah, no knee slides.
Nope.
Or making little heart shapes with your fingers. What's that all about?
Bale's terrible for that patter. No pointing up to the gods either. Frank Lampard.
Thanking your dead granny.
All that sort of stuff, yeah. Let's keep that to the changing rooms. Yeah, I don't like... I hate stupid haircuts and tattoos and football and coloured football boots. Just get a short back and sides, okay?
You know, like the curled mullets of the 70s
pair
and 80s.
of black Adidas or Puma.
No Predators either. No, studs in the bottom.
Yeah, bit of dubbing on them. That's all you need. Yeah, don't want to see anything else. Some players can get away with it, right? See, if you are Ronaldo or Messi, you can do what you like. But your average football player who's got the haircuts and the tattoos and all that sort of stuff, you would have been better placed on a training ground instead of in the tattoo parlour or the hairdressers or whatever it is you're doing because you're hopeless.
Fair
anyway,
enough.
Unless you become World Player of the Year, you shouldn't be messing about with that sort of stuff.
Well, that's the thing they always say. If you're wearing coloured boots, you better have the game to go with it.
Oh, well, everyone wears them these days, doesn't they? That's the thing.
They do, yeah.
See, that's the thing, isn't it? It's if you were to wear black boots, you would stand out more.
Almost, yeah.
It's like myself as well. I don't have any. And again, if you get most people have got tattoos, so I'm not having a go. But it used to be a thing like tattoos would stand out. You'd be different. Last summer when I was in the beach or like the pool, not having any tattoos, I'm the one that stands out. Every other.
Also, because you're kind of glowing white.
Not at all. By that point, I'm glistening, I'm thingy, right? But I'm the only one. I remember looking about, going, I'm the only person with no tattoo. Yeah, I'm the individual. I'm the one who's different.
Yes.
Anyway,
we're all individuals.
We're all individuals, yeah.
I'm not.
Now, anyway, that's my rant.
That's us on modern football.
Yeah, modern football's dead. Haircuts and boots. If you're American listeners, love all this.
It's the same in their sports as well.
Well, that's probably too many. It's messing about with celebrations and all sorts of stuff. Practice your skills, and you'll be better at your job. Forget about all other stuff.
Exactly.
You sound like you're actually getting old now. You know that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the thing.
Kirk and Spock, getting back to this, discuss. Well, before they even get to discuss it, Spock's onto the poo-pooing because Kirk wants to raise the question of this being a penal vessel.
A what?
A penal vessel.
Oh yeah, okay. Yes, he quite rightly makes the point that during a period of war on Earth, it would be really inefficient of use of your resources to be sending 70 people into space. I mean, you could have stuck them in a jail or murdered them.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what you would do.
Anyhow, Spock denies having the capacity to feel irritated at the lack of facts available to him to draw his own conclusion.
Yeah, but these lack of facts does open them up to an element of danger.
Yes, Kirk therefore instructs Helm to head for Starbase 12 and bring the Botany Bay in.
I'm sure we've heard of Starbase 12 before.
I've heard of one of the Starbases.
Okay.
I don't keep track of the numbers.
In sickbay, Kirk enters and is told by McCoy that the stranger will live, although it was nothing to do with him.
Well, it's not that it's nothing to do with him, but it wasn't down to his skill, it's just down to the man's fortitude.
Yeah, so nothing to do with him.
I think he might still have died if McCoy had done nothing.
Did he do anything?
Pretty sure he brought him over and gave him oxygen or whatever he needed.
You think?
I reckon so.
Oh.
What I want to know though is how have they avoided muscle wastage? He's been sleeping for 2 centuries and not exercising.
I'm guessing that in the future you can inject something.
Electrical stimulus or something inside the chamber?
I think maybe you would just inject something into the muscles, which would do like a sort of collagen or a sealant or some sort of substance that would, a bulking agent.
You think?
Yeah, that's what I would do.
You've thought this through?
Yes.
Okay.
McCoy goes on to state that this stranger has an incredible constitution and guesses he has tremendous strength and wonders if his intelligence, his brain, matches these physical attributes. And this again is more water for the thirsty MacGyvers. As she walks in and hears this, she's clearly in awe. Often.
Yes. Well, you would be maybe as a historian if a historical figure came to life.
Yeah.
But she's not maybe tipping to the side of professionalism.
No. Kirk tells her he wants to talk to her in front of McCoy in the adjoining room.
If I were to rate your performance as a member of the landing party today,
No, sir, I'm sorry.
Lieutenant, at any one time, the safety of this entire vessel might depend on the performance of a single crewman aboard. And the fact that you find a man strangely compelling to you personally.
Not personally, Captain, professionally. My profession is historian, and to find a specimen from the past alive, I mean, the sheer delight of examining is mine.
And men were more adventuresome then, bolder, more colorful.
Yes, sir, I think they were.
Good. If I can have honesty, it's easier to overlook mistakes, that's all.
Yes, sir.
It's a pity you wasted your life on command, Jim. You'd have made a fair psychologist.
Fair?
So that was another example of Kirk not acting professionally himself.
Or appropriately.
No. Giving her a talking down to in front of someone else isn't ideal, and I'm not really sure at this point how big or what sort of mistakes she's made.
No, she answered the questions that she was asked. She maybe was a bit distracted, but you'd expect that. It's like an archaeologist finding, the pyramids or something. It's like, well, stay professional, don't get too, she's bound to be excited by this.
She's enthusiastic, she's passionate. This is an extremely unique
the only thing
opportunity
I can think of, tying back into what we said earlier, is there's an unwritten subplot where Kirk is now jealous of something.
Possibly. Or it's just the fact that they know how things are going to play out, and they're creating
it a wee bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't make sense from her point of
no.
view. Also, having dismissed her in this way, to then have he and McCoy joke about how good he is at psychology.
And yeah, he's not very good at psychology at all.
An inappropriate conversation as well.
Yeah. In the other room, we see the stranger rise with a wince. And when he gets up to stretch, he overhears the lab report sent to McCoy that confirms all the bios were fine before he spots something.
Yes, a display.
What type of display?
Ancient medical instruments.
He removes a scalpel before returning to bed and pretending to be asleep.
Sneaky.
And therefore, when McCoy goes to check on him, he has the knife pulled, as we heard in the intro clip.
We did. McCoy, rather than becoming intimidated by this, simply asks them, or directs them, as we heard, towards the carotid artery, and asks him to choose between slitting his throat or strangling him.
So I think this bravado impresses. He earns a bit of respect.
I think McCoy's just annoyed. It's like, I'm treating you, I'm helping you, why are you reacting in this way?
Oh, you would be annoyed for sure.
Yeah.
The man then wants to speak to his captain, as he has many questions, and so McCoy communicates down for Kirk.
Not before confirming that the voice this man remembers telling me he'd been sleeping for 2 centuries was, in fact, true.
Yes.
That wasn't a false memory.
So a little bit later in sickbay, the chap's sitting up as Kirk enters and introduces himself.
Yes, he's asked their heading, and knowing that this will mean nothing to the guy, he says they're heading for Starbase 12, and he confirms that 72 of the pods remain operational, and that once they get to Starbase 12, they will be revived.
He then decides to identify himself.
Yes, he says his name is Khan.
Just Khan, but will not confirm when he set off on his mission, or answered any questions at this point in time now because he's fatigued.
He's being a bit cagey, I think. He still wants to assess the situation.
Yeah, Kirk wants to push him, but McCoy interjects and advises that later would be better.
Yeah, and then Kirk makes a very foolish decision.
You have this stranger on your ship. Or certainly McCoy believes that he is physically very powerful and potentially intellectually very powerful. We don't know if he's a friend or a foe. What do you do, or what shouldn't you do?
You shouldn't give him the blueprints to your spaceship.
No, access to the entire library on the ship, so he can find out all sorts.
A little bit of an echo of Gary Mitchell here.
Yeah, when he was speed reading
the entire ship's computer.
Mm-hmm. So in any case, Can thanks him, Kirk leaves, but there's a look to McCoy that shows he's unsure about how to read this patient. So they do know that...
There's some suspicion.
Yes.
I don't think Kirk's getting any concern.
No.
Not at this stage.
Up in the bridge.
He's discussing this with Spock.
Yes, he confesses that he is confused by Can, and Spock actually makes the point that he's making considerable use of the library.
Yeah, and Kirk thinks it's only fair given the catching up he has to do and the fact that he will have to live the rest of his life in this century.
Sure. He then asks Spock if it is possible that Can could be a result of a selective breeding program, and he confirms it is possible, as in 1993 a group of supermen seized power in 40 different nations.
I think that's probably because in that reality Neil Kinnock won the 1992 election. It's not really my memory of 1993.
Are you sure? Do you not remember that? No?
Maybe I've just forgotten. I was quite young.
You weren't? No, you weren't.
I hadn't turned 12 until 1993.
Yeah, apparently. Kirk tries to play down the Superman tag, but Spock reminds him that superior power breeds superior ambition, and then notes that there were around 80 or 90 unaccounted for when these overthrowers were finally defeated.
Probably worth noting that there were 85 pods in the Botany Bay, and just leaving that there for a moment of thought.
I think Kirk makes the point that there was no mention of this in the history books, as you can confirm, Ian.
Exactly. But then I suppose history is rarely accurate. It's all political.
Written by the victors, they say.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Written by people who want to influence other people's behaviour.
Spock says that having 80 Napoleons running well is not the sort of thing you want to tell survivors of war.
Well, he's justifying mass deception.
Yes, yeah. No one would ever do that these days, would they? No leader would tell lies and deceive their
Not consciously.
People. Okay.
No, never.
Back in Sick Bay.
Yes, Khan's got another visitor.
Yes, the now extremely thirsty McIvers.
Yeah, and she's, I think, somewhat impressed that he knows her name.
Yes. And immediately sets about working on her fascination with him by referring to her as a beautiful woman and asking to be entertained by her. Now, in fairness to the scriptwriters here, I think what they might have done is the fact that Kirk has been treating her so poorly means that she is susceptible to the charms of Khan, so that may well be
fair.
A deliberate.
She does try to maintain some vestige of professionalism.
Does she? How?
Well, she doesn't respond positively to his advances. She doesn't give him the information he's looking for, and she goes to leave.
Well, she sits and asks about his ship.
Yeah, well, she's interested in that from her point of view.
Yeah, he's more concerned about how she should wear her hair and insults her current styling.
It's a bit harsh.
Yeah, considering the Gene Simmons look.
I think it's meant to be flattering. They say, "Oh, you've got a good look under there."
Yeah, it's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, negging.
Look, but she doesn't prevent him from stroking her and changing it himself.
No, but what's she going to do?
Walk away.
She wants information from him, and she does eventually walk away.
Well, she eventually pulls herself away, and he tugs her back. And we have this technique that I've noted, I've seen before, where it's a sort of the light. It's like starlight coming from the eyes. It's a reflection.
Yeah,
I've seen it a few times actually,
but not quite as bad as Gary Mitchell's.
No.
Down in the mess hall.
Is it the mess hall or the rec room?
I think it's the mess hall.
Okay.
It could be the rec room. It doesn't really matter.
The table is set with this cartoon food.
Yes, and McCoy is very impressed by the spread.
Yes, he's told that it was or is McIver's idea to welcome Khan to their century.
I think Kirk is starting to worry about her.
Yes, he asked McCoy just how hard he thinks that she has fallen for him. But McCoy's got I'm not sure I agree with his response.
Well, he says that Khan has a certain magnetism that could overpower her, given her fascination in him from a historical point of view.
Yeah, but he also says that romance is not forbidden, but I think it would be forbidden. When you're at your work here, you can't, it's not just a free-for-all.
Yeah, I think he's maybe not seriously concerned, so he's being playful with it, but I think Kirk's concerns are real.
And with good reason. We're in MacGyver's room now, where Can comes in and praises her work before interrupting her to note that she has changed her look for him.
Yeah, he's also very pleased that she's painting him.
Oh, you would be.
Yeah.
Quite the compliment.
Yeah.
In the nude.
Maybe. She just hasn't got that far.
He then gets a bit, I would class this as a bit James Bond rapey.
Yeah, so she says she knows who he is, that he is the same as these people, Leif Erikson, Napoleon, Richard the Lionheart. So maybe that's a wee bit later she says that, but it's the same idea. She's given this impression that she classes him as someone of this nature.
Sure.
And he says that men such as these dare to take what they want.
Yeah.
That's just rape apology, isn't it?
Yep. He grabs her, kisses her, like Bond, and like Bond, she struggles at first and then...
If you keep kissing them, eventually they like it.
Oh yeah.
That's what I've learned from watching James Bond and this episode.
Yes. Note to 12-year-old self. I says not.
You should have learned that sooner. Yeah.
Back down in the rec room or the mess hall.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Kirk asks Can...
Well, the meal's finished now, we should say.
Yeah, sometimes obviously past, and Kirk asks Can about his journey. And Spock wants to know how he kept it out of the history books. What does Can tell him about what he's been up to, or why he's been up to things?
He says he left Earth to seek adventure.
Yes, as there was little else left, and he's not happy when the war to end tyranny is suggested as something worth fighting for.
Many consider that a noble effort.
Tyranny, sir? Or an attempt to unify humanity?
Unify, sir? Like a team of animals under one whip?
I know something of those years, remember? It was a time of great dreams, of great aspiration.
Under dozens of petty dictatorships.
One man would have ruled eventually. As Rome under Caesar. Think of its accomplishments.
Then your sympathies were with...
You are an excellent tactician, Captain. You let your second-in-command attack while you sit and watch for weakness.
You have a tendency to express ideas in military terms, Mr. Khan. This is a social occasion.
It has been said that social occasions are only warfare concealed. Many prefer it more honest, more open.
You fled. Why? Were you afraid?
I've never been afraid.
But you left at the very time mankind needed courage.
We offered the world order. We... Excellent. Excellent.
I think Khan's moderately impressed that they got that from him.
Yes, but he can barely conceal his anger as he then excuses himself, claiming tiredness.
Once again.
Up in his quarters, he is pacing his room when MacGyver enters to apologise for the way that he was treated.
This is a disturbing scene.
Tell me about it.
So viewer discretion is advised. Khan is less upset with Kirk and Spock than MacGyver says. He understands why they would do that. He's a mystery to them. He would work out an opponent in a similar way. This is where she says explicitly that she classes him alongside Napoleon Erikson and Richard the Lionheart, who he was a crusader, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Not sure he's quite... I suppose there's similarities.
Probably a decent leader.
She doesn't think that Khan's going to enjoy the 23rd century, but he says he'll remould it
to his liking as he tries to kiss her. But when she initially tries to stop him, he very quickly switches his personality and tells her to go or stay, but to make sure whatever she decides, it's because she wants to do it. Now,
he's angry though.
And this scene, I enjoyed the scene in the sense that it showed a sort of master manipulator at work. He's obviously spotted her weakness, looked for her vulnerability, and he's playing it's psychological abuse. It reminded me of like domestic abuse you get here. It's not always physical, it's how people can bully and manipulate their partners, and this is a prime example of it.
Yeah, it's horrible to watch, but also very well performed.
Yeah, it's a good scene. I think this type of scene gives these episodes a bit more gravitas. They lend a bit more weight. It's not quite as fluffy as some of the other.
Exactly. He isn't content now for her to say she wants to stay.
No, he feigns being insulted by her supposed graciousness, and then demands that she has to now ask.
Basically beg.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she does. So obviously the plan has worked from his point of view.
Yeah, he's a cunning one, isn't he?
And at this, he then reveals his plan. He thinks he now controls her, I think, in his mind.
Yeah.
She begs him not to ask for her help.
Well, what is the plan?
He's going to take the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I say, she begs not to be included in this, but eventually agrees to do whatever he asks. It does not seem, I've said, like a healthy relationship.
It's not at all. Which is slightly concerning for how the episode plays out.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
I wonder as well, yes, I'm not... So, yeah, Wrath of Khan...
We'll get to that as well.
Ah, okay.
I'm going to have to spoil some of the movie for you.
No, don't spoil the movie for me.
Not the whole movie.
No, don't spoil any of it.
That's impossible.
Don't talk about it.
You just close your ears, I'll tell you when.
Okay. Back down in the briefing room. Kirk, Spock, Scotty and McCoy have pictures of images of Khan on the screen and are reviewing what they have discovered about him.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. They say that, oh yeah, he's the guy that ruled over Earth, a quarter of Earth,
what was his
for
name?
4 years. He's Khan Noonien Singh.
Okay.
It's a bit odd then that they didn't recognise him or think of him when they were told his name was Khan.
Yeah, but
It's like if some guy woke up and said, yeah, my name's Attila.
Sure, but they didn't know this at the time. They've had to... This is, I imagine, library footage.
Well, no, they're talking about him like they've heard of him.
No, I think that they've researched using the computers, and now they're looking at the screen and going,
You think
okay,
this is all fresh learning?
Yeah, I think this is what they've found out.
Okay.
I think maybe maybe Spock has found out and he's describing it to McCoy and what have you.
Well, they've all got their own input though. McCoy notes that he was the last of the tyrants to fall, and Scotty shows a bit of admiration, I think, for him.
He does, yes.
Even Kirk speaks well of him at this stage.
Yeah, I think he says he was the best of the tyrants, but also the most dangerous. And he concedes that they were supermen of sorts, which disconcerts Spock, who doesn't understand the romanticising of these dictators.
Scotty notes that there were no massacres under his rule.
Yeah, but Spock says, yeah, but there's no freedom either. And I think I quite like this. Kirk says that humans have these barbaric streaks within their nature. And it's true, I think, that we do, as a whole, or we can as a whole, I mean, if you look at the movies, from the early dawn of movies, it's gangsters and criminals and, it's violence and all that type of stuff. But we do this all the time. I mean, I like to read about serial killers, for example. I mean, I think people are fascinated with Ted Bundy and the
True crime podcasts.
Of course, yeah. So you do sort of glamorise it and romanticise it to an extent that sensible people realise that the reality is far from that, but you still find entertainment. And I mean, I think, yeah, when you read about the top mafia godfathers, you think to yourself, well, that's fair play.
Well, I think Kirk goes on to say that you can admire someone even though you oppose them.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Or what they stand for.
Mm-hmm.
Even McCoy's in it, he's noting that Khan only fought wars when he was provoked.
Yeah.
But Spock is generally unconvinced, and Kirk agrees to put a guard on Khan's quarters.
Down there, he is in deep concentration when Kirk comes in and sits across from him and reveals that he knows exactly who he is.
Yes, Khan now confirms that they left Earth to try to find a new world to build, obviously anticipating failure in their project.
Sure. He's been run out of town.
Yeah. He notes his disappointment in man's genetic progress in his absence.
Yes, that's true. I think that, Kirk brings it up because Khan says that Kirk wouldn't understand why he was doing this. And Kirk asks if it was because he wasn't genetically programmed.
Yeah. Taunting him almost.
And this lack of improvement in the human species, I think, gives Khan tremendous confidence that his people will be able to fit in very nicely, or will have no trouble establishing the old regime.
Indeed.
This looks to worry Kirk as he gets up to leave, and a triumphant Khan asks if he's any other questions.
Yes, bit of the table turning. Absolutely very important now that he leaves one incompetent guard outside Khan's office, or Khan's room at all times.
Yes, because as soon as he leaves, that's what happens. Khan has the incredible strength. He is able to break through the sliding door and then knock out the guard and escape.
Yes, and with the help of MacGyvers, he is able to transport over to the Botany Bay.
And back on his ship, he finds his crew stretching, doing a little bit of yoga, Pilates perhaps, and he tells them the battle has begun. But this time, it is for the universe.
Indeed.
It's a good thing to be battling for, I suppose.
Well, why not?
May as well.
Up on the Enterprise bridge, Kirk is alerted to Khan's escape and raises the alert.
Well, he tries to.
Yeah, well, Uhura reports that comms are down, and unfortunately it seems they are trapped on the bridge without control of any systems.
Yeah, it's not only communications, is it? So Kirk tries to speak with Scotty in engineering, but we see that he has been overpowered.
Yes, he's knocked out whilst he's talking to Kirk, and this leads to a sort of standoff between Khan and engineering and Kirk on the bridge.
Yeah, well, I think it's quite clear now that Khan has the upper hand, although he does state that he is willing to negotiate. But apparently Kirk still hasn't fully understood or comprehended what is happening, as he orders neurogas to be sent through all decks, but of course the systems aren't working.
No, of course. And ironically, now it's Spock who's impressed with Khan, when he was the one poo-pooing everybody else's respect for Khan in the previous discussion.
Yeah, I think he noticed that he obviously studied the manuals very thoroughly. Who could have predicted that that was a bad idea?
Oh, who knows?
Kirk still persists with giving impotent orders, like telling Uhura to contact Starbase 12, as Khan communicates through to the bridge to inform them that their air should be getting a little bit thin around about now.
Absolutely.
And he asks for surrender.
Kirk's not willing to go along that route.
Well, not at first. His initial reaction is to say no, but he doesn't have much of a choice.
A little later, though, we see the bridge crew have passed out, mostly, apart from Kirk, who's recording a log.
Yes, 3142.8. Khan has discarded his own ship, and they have just moments of air left. And he's recommending commendations for Uhura, Spock, and some other randoms. Where's Sulu in this episode?
He's not in this episode.
Why not?
Too expensive.
They never explain. Listen,
No.
Sulu's their friend as well.
He's off shift.
With all, yeah, but he's got nowhere to go. It's like, Sulu, we've been... Can's on board. We're all...
Nah,
all
I'm in my room.
my,
I'm not working.
I'm not working. I've got 2 weeks off. Don't care.
He's down in the botanics lab doing his flowers.
Yeah.
The wee guy with the glove.
Sure.
Kirk tries to take full responsibility at the end of this log, but passes out before he can complete his statement.
He does. In the briefing room, we find out that fortunately, they're not all dead.
No, as soon as they'd passed out, they were recovered and captured.
Yeah, I think it's the department heads who are there, minus Kirk. And they sit and listen to Khan's offer for them to join him. Apparently, he'll treat them well. He just wants them to get behind him.
Yes, and there's one problem.
What's that?
He hasn't anticipated that they would want to see, I think, what's going on with Kirk. Or
Yeah.
he wants to show them.
Well, I think Scotty demands to know where Kirk is, and so Khan forcibly has Uhura engage the viewing screen, which includes what?
Oh, she gets struck to the face quite powerfully.
It's a very fearsome backhander.
You'd think, having read all the technical manuals, he could turn it on himself.
Good point. Very good point. Maybe it's just a show of power.
Maybe.
If you don't obey, this is what will happen to you.
Yeah.
I didn't think... So the threat was there for a moment, and I thought, yeah, that won't happen. And then she does get hit, and I must admit, I was a bit taken aback by it.
Yeah, well, it shows these are bad people.
Yeah, certainly.
She's almost struck a second time, but Marla steps in.
Yes. Have you used the word Marla before? The name Marla?
MacGyvers.
Yeah. And the screen is eventually turned on. And we see a decompression chamber and the dying Kirk inside.
we do, but Khan has realised he made a grave error.
What was that?
He didn't realise that suffocating the bridge crew would forge a unity between them, a resolute defiance. So none of them want to join his side.
Yeah, it's an error. In real life, I think after the first one goes, the rest all fall in line.
It's possible.
You
Yeah.
see your captain choking to death. You're next. Yep. What do you want? I've said this before. I'd be terrible. See if you get captured and we're going to torture you.
I'll tell you.
It's not like a Rambo movie where he's like, no, and they're sticking needles in his biceps. As soon as that needle or a hammer gets pulled out, whatever you want, give me a pen. Yep. Names, date, time, no problem at all. Just put the hammer away. You don't need those pliers.
I need all my fingers and all my fingernails.
That'll be fine, yeah. I'll sing. Yeah, and so in this case as well, Kirk, he's choking to death. Yep, I'm on your side now.
Yep, switch.
No problem.
No loyalty.
No problem at all. Don't choke me.
As Kirk's death approaches, MacGyver's asks to be excused. She can't watch this happen. Khan's a bit disappointed, I think.
Yeah, and we should say that what he's doing is saying, he says to Spock, if you join me, I'll save your captain's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, she says she can't. And this is the thing as well. He gives her that look of disgust, disappointment.
Yes, but I think at this time, she's playing into his expectations of her. Kind of a flip on what he was doing with manipulating her earlier on.
Which makes it a bit odd, again, how this plays out. You would think that perhaps he didn't even want...
I mean, I think she's still on his side. She just doesn't want Kirk to die. Or she doesn't want to be responsible for Kirk dying.
Sure, but he's really disobeyed his orders. He looks like the type of guy that you have to do exactly what he says. Yeah,
but does he find out it was her? Who knows? I suppose he would.
Yeah, she leaves.
Yeah, especially when she... we'll find out what she does.
Yeah, okay, so we're down in the decompression chamber.
Well, no, but seconds after she leaves, they lose the picture from the decompression chamber.
That's true, yeah.
But Khan's not concerned. Kirk will be dead. He sends one of his minions down with Spock to take the next shift.
She approaches the guard outside and is able to incapacitate him with some sort of injection.
She uses the old look over there trick, which he does.
Before releasing a groggy Kirk. However, she is not fully committed to returning to the good side.
No, not fully.
What does she say?
She says, don't kill him.
Yeah, I've saved your life, so now don't kill him. She's not really taking it. I'm not sure. She's trying to play both sides, but I think what she might have done is just made both sides not trust or appreciate her.
Yeah, probably. Spock arrives at this point, and I felt reminiscent of last week's episode with the Archons.
Okay.
So you had Kirk being absorbed, and then Spock was brought through next, but in reality, nothing had happened to Kirk.
Sure.
So it's the same here. Spock arrives expecting Kirk to have been killed, but no, Kirk's fine and they can team up to save the day.
How did they do that?
Well, first of all, they take out Spock's guard fairly easily, and then Spock briefs Kirk and they decide to release the neural gas they talked about earlier from a nearby relay junction.
Yes, into all decks apart from the one that they are on.
Yes, but then they run into one of the other decks almost immediately.
Yeah.
But anyway.
In the briefing room, a less relaxed Khan communicates through to the armory but gets no response and then makes a run for it when gas starts spreading from the vents.
I think Scotty goes out after him but bumps into Kirk in the corridor,
telling him that Khan is on the loose.
Yes, and on comms we hear Spock directing them to engineering, but unfortunately Khan also hears them being directed to engineering.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a mistake, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we see he is at the control station down there, and because he heard this, he's able to wait in ambush. He knows Kirk's on his way.
He is. But he finds the fight so easy, Khan, that he, I think, loses focus a little bit before he completely takes Kirk out.
Let's mention the fact that he takes his phaser off him and crushes it with his bare hands.
He does do that, and I think we hear that he's set an overload on the console.
Yes, meaning the ship is going to explode within minutes. Kirk's body double then makes a dash for it, but is thrown aside. This was we've seen it before, but I think this is the worst.
Yeah, but they didn't have 55-inch 4K televisions back in the day.
I don't have a 55-inch 4K TV, and it's still obvious.
You don't have a cathode ray tube.
I watched this on an iPad. And I thought, why is this
I think
other
it's
person
still
now?
higher resolution.
Yeah, no doubt, but why is this other guy fighting?
So, well, you just suspend disbelief. Anyhow, Khan dominates Kirk in this fight, and like I say, I think loses a bit of concentration.
I wasn't happy with this. This Superman, who is physically far superior, has just been demonstrated, is easily outwitted and overpowered by Kirk.
Yeah, he gets cocky, and then he gets caught out.
Yeah, but even that, I'm not convinced it'd be enough if he was such a strong and powerful chap that that would do it.
I don't think his strength advantage is as pronounced as they made out.
He can crush a gun
He's
with
got
his
strong hands.
strong hands.
But he's not a superhero. He's just a genetically superior human. So his skills and his strength are still only within human capability.
No, crushing a gun with your hand is not within human capabilities.
Maybe it's really, really fragile.
Yeah, and saying that's a phaser, isn't it? It's not a gun.
Yeah.
So I don't know how. Yeah,
It's not made probably out of steel.
It's like a remote control. You could probably crush one of those.
Especially if you rubbed it really long time on your leg till it got hot and it was soft.
I don't want to know what you do with your... anyway, let's move on. So yeah, Kirk is able to beat him and just in time avert the overload. Before we have a captain's log, 3143.3.
Yes, control of the Enterprise has been regained, but Kirk still has difficult work to do.
Not that difficult, is it? He makes it more difficult than he needs to.
Well, yeah, he thinks it would be a waste to jail them, essentially.
Yeah, and also, I wasn't sure how or why Khan suddenly just accepts defeat. You know, he just walks along. Why? You know, he can start...
Well, everybody around him's got phasers.
Yeah, or maybe it was just a matter of honour for him. In any case, we're in the briefing room.
We are. They're all dressed up for a court-martial.
They are. Khan and MacGyvers are led in to face their punishment as Kirk, Spock, McCoy and Scotty sit in judgment.
Under the authority vested in me by Starfleet Command, I declare all charges and specifications in this matter have been dropped.
Jim, agreed you have the authority.
Mr. Spock, I believe our heading takes us near the Ceti Alpha star system.
Quite correct, Captain. Planet number 5 there is habitable, although a bit savage, somewhat inhospitable.
But no more than Australia's Botany Bay colony was at the beginning. Those men went on to tame a continent, Mr. Khan. Can you tame a world?
Have you ever read Milton, Captain?
Yes. I understand. Lieutenant Marla MacGyvers. Given a choice of court-martial or accompanying them there,
It will be difficult. A struggle at first, even to stay alive, to find food.
I'll go with him, sir.
A superior woman. I will take her. And I've gotten something else I wanted. A world to win, an empire to build.
Scotty, at this point, makes a bizarre comment.
Extremely. He says that he is embarrassed that, as a good Scotsman, he is not up on Milton.
Why would he be?
I have no idea. Now, I'm no expert on Milton.
The only Milton I know is the antiseptic stuff that you
Yeah.
wipe on wounds.
No, I mean, we know he wrote Paradise Lost and he was English, so I thought, is there some other Scottish connection I'm missing here? Perhaps he, at some point he lived in Scotland. None stood out and I double checked. No, there's no connection. Why would a good this can only be because it's American writers who are fairly ignorant in the difference between Scotland and England. They're confusing the two. Why would a Scotsman have... Why would he be embarrassed about not knowing Milton? Why?
I mean, Wordsworth.
Yeah, the only...
No, wait,
the only... If had it been Burns, that would be the only...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every good Scotsman knows he's Burns.
Well, yeah.
But you would know references from Burns, at least.
Yes.
But you wouldn't know Milton. We don't get taught that.
would not be expected to know Milton.
No.
It's crazy.
It's very odd. Yeah.
And, of course, because it was a Canadian playing a Scotsman, the actor himself would not have said, this isn't right.
he
Why am I
doesn't pick
saying
it up
this?
for them, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Spock wraps us up for the day.
He does, and I think he leads into the Wrath Khan.
A little bit unknowingly. He says it would be interesting to see what's sprung on the planet if they came back 100 years later.
And Kirk agrees it would indeed as we wrap up.
Fair conclusion, you think?
Yeah.
I think it reflects Kirk's respect for Khan.
Yeah, there was a respect there. But if we go back to Conscious of the King, if this chap, I mean, I don't think he explicitly says that he murdered people, but if you're a tyrant who, you'd assume that there's been some sort of genocide.
Maybe not. He maybe just rose to power.
Oh, in fact, did not say that during there was no wars.
Yeah, he didn't. The only wars he fought were defensive wars. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, fair enough.
Just weren't a lot of freedoms.
It's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we saw that with last week.
Yeah.
When they had the planet that had no real freedoms, but it had peace.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Khan will treat MacGyver's better now that she's come with him?
I think so, but I'm not sure. She sort of betrayed him a little bit by releasing Kirk.
Yeah,
She certainly disobeyed.
does it?
No.
And the other thing, surely they have to report this to somebody. Is how do they stop Starfleet relitigating or just going and picking those folk up and put them in a prison?
Yeah, you have to assume that will happen off screen.
Well, maybe.
Does he have the authority to do that? Just drop people off and like the his own crew? I mean, it's fine perhaps if it's Khan because he's not responsible for it.
Her family, yeah.
Yeah, her mother and father. At least we don't know if she's married or got kids or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure she's got some sort of family.
You would think.
Well, we've dropped her off there with
a bit of a shocker,
an
yeah.
alien we've picked up.
Yeah, that's her choice.
Yeah,
but he's done that a few times. He left that guy with the Tranya drinking little thing.
Yeah, and he left. Was it Lundstrom?
Yes.
Uh huh.
They're not the only one.
And Charlie.
Well, Charlie disappeared off somewhere.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Any other thoughts?
No, an enjoyable episode. Had a good theme, and there were some scenes within it, as we discussed, that were intriguing, were well acted, and were a bit more meaty than others.
Yep.
I would like to have seen more of Khan.
Well, you can.
Can't. So yeah, no, an enjoyable episode. I thought that how Kirk treated MacGyver, as I said, I wasn't happy with, and also if I had to pick at it, the writing of this female character. It's like, oh, isn't she a woman? She can't control. She's not very professional. She's fallen for this handsome man.
Yeah.
She's going to throw everything away, her career, everything else, to follow him around. She can't help herself. And I don't think they would have written a male character in the same way.
They
In fact,
could
we've
have had
seen
her taking the same actions, but with more thought behind it. I think they could have written her better.
Sure.
She's almost written from the male perspective.
Yeah, yeah. But overall, an enjoyable episode. I think I give it a big thumbs up.
Great.
Liked it.
Shall we get some trivia out of the way quickly?
Why not?
We've kept folk long enough. The original air date, 16th of February, 1967. Directed by Mark Daniels, 5th of his 14 episodes. You hear all about him back in episode 1, The Man Trap. Kerry Wilbur wrote the story for the episode. He only wrote this one, Star Trek, but he was also responsible for episodes of shows like Bonanza, Wonder Woman, Hawaii Five-0. Died in 1998 at the age of 81. Ricardo Montalban played Khan, and he is our Colombo connection this week.
Certainly is.
He, of course, played Luis Montoya in the episode A Matter of Honour.
An often underlooked and undervalued episode. I think I quite enjoy it.
And also Colombo doesn't prove anything against him.
No.
Anyway, he would reprise the role of Khan in the second Star Trek feature film, and he had a long and productive career in film and television, including movies like The Naked Gun and shows like Bonanza and Fantasy Island, and he died in 2009 at the age of 88. Madeleine Roux played Maria MacGyvers. This was her only Star Trek appearance, and if you want to cover your ears now, I'll discuss why she wasn't in Star Trek 2. Her character was at one stage written into the script for Star Trek 2, but it turned out that due to her multiple sclerosis, she was then wheelchair bound, and they didn't want to recast the role, so they didn't include the character in the movie. She also appeared in shows like Bonanza and Fantasy Island, both opposite Ricardo Montalban, and I think she was married to him in one of the other shows as well. And she had a 2-year run in Days of Our Lives, as well as appearing in 5 Murder, She Wrote, and she died in 2003 at the age of 68. Mark Tobin made the first of 2 Star Trek appearances in this episode as Joaquin, one of Khan's men, or Joaquin, I don't know how you would pronounce it. Anyway, he also appeared in an episode of Star Trek Voyager, but not much else outside of Star Trek, only a handful of other credits. He does seem to still be alive, but I don't have any information on when he was born or how old he is.
His heartbeat is very low.
It's very 4 beats per hour. Trivia-wise, Khan Noonien Singh takes his name in part from Kim Noonien Singh, a friend of Gene Roddenberry's from World War II. It's said that he lost contact and used the name both in this show and for a character in The Next Generation in the hope that his friend would recognise it and get in touch. I don't know that he ever did.
Must be dead.
Or doesn't like sci-fi. Really unfortunate. The 2013 movie Star Trek Into Darkness retells this story for the altered Kelvin timeline with Benedict Cumberbatch in the role of Khan. That's a spoiler for anyone who hasn't watched that movie yet. And in terms of international titles, we'll start with our friends in Japan, who go with Uchu no Teo, King of Space. The Italians go with Spazio Profondo, which simply means deep space and maybe misses the point a little bit. Full marks, though, to the German titlers, who opted for Der Schlafende Tiger, which means the sleeping tiger. Quite like that.
It's okay. Best of the lot.
Next week, 23rd episode of Season 1, A Taste of Armageddon.
Oh, just a taste.
Sounds a bit ominous. Until then, get us on the usual social media channels, and we will see you in 7 days' time.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.